In my previous video, I made this shelf rack thing to store my stuff and it seemed pretty lonely on its own, so I decided to make a smaller one in this video. Now the stuff that's on the shelf are just for the video. I'm not actually keeping those stuff here, and the reason why I made the shelf in the first place is to store my supplies, tools and whatnot. So I started this small project with the leftover metal pieces from my previous project, and I needed 4 pieces, so I marked where to cut them, and I cut them roughly to be 1 feet each. Here I'm grinding the ends of the metal pieces so that way it would match with the other pieces. So after that I worked on the wood pieces. I cut them to the correct size and started to sand them. Now I'm not a woodworker or anything like that, so I don't really know how to finish the wood perfectly, and on my last video you can see a lot of imperfections, but it wasn't a big deal because I wasn't really going for the looks that much. I just wanted it to be functional. I started to sand the wood pieces using 80 grit sandpaper, and it was way harder to remove those lines on the wood pieces, so I had to spend a lot of time trying to remove them. So like I said before, I sanded it for a while trying to remove those lines, and after a while I got sick of it, so I just moved on to sanding with 120 grit sandpaper. Then finally I used 220 grit sandpaper to finish it. Next I drilled some holes in the metal pieces so that way I can screw it into the wood pieces. Then on the wood piece I marked where I want the metal pieces to be and drilled a couple of holes so that way I can put my jigsaw blade inside. Then I carefully used the jigsaw to make a square hole. I wanted to put the metal bar somewhere in the middle of the wood, so that way it would make the shelf much more stronger. So once I was done with the first shelf, I put the second shelf underneath and marked all the places I need to cut. And here I just repeated the same steps as before. I then put the metal bars in, pre-drilled the holes and screwed them in. So when adding the second shelf, I made sure that it's level to the below shelf. This was a little bit tricky, but I think I got it close enough, so it should be fine. Here I'm using the grinder to remove the sharp edges from the metal pieces, and then I added 2-part epoxy glue to make it a little bit more stronger. Then I worked on finishing the wood. Now I used the same finish as I used before, but this time the color was a little bit lighter, which I'm assuming because of the sanding process that I did. Now previously I didn't really sand it too well, so maybe it's because of that, maybe it's not, but it's not an issue because the difference is not that noticeable. And then I coated the whole thing twice, and I made sure to lightly sand in between coats. Like I said before, I'm not familiar with finishing wood or woodworking in general, so most of this is pretty new to me, but this time it was noticeably better than the previous build. So next I drilled some holes in the metal bars so that way I can screw this thing into my wall. So here I'm using a metal bar and a level to draw a line, so that way I can use this line to align my shelf on the wall. I marked where the holes should be and drilled them. Finally, I painted the bars in black and mounted it to the wall using screws. So yeah, with that, the project is done. I'll put the link to my previous project in the description, so if you guys are curious, you guys can check it out. And yeah, thank you for watching.